Hi, my name is Patrice Carroll. I'm the Director of PWS Services at Latham Centers. When we talk about challenging behaviors, I think the first thing and the most important thing that I need people to hear is that when we see these challenging behaviors, the behaviors that we often see in the person with PWS, they're not by choice. There are three neurocognitive differences that we see in the person with PWS that really affect the way a person with PWS sees the world, sees themselves, sees other people. And these often lead to the challenging behaviors that we're so used to seeing. The first one is they live with executive functioning disorder. So executive functioning are the list of skills that you have that allow you to complete a task, any task, everything from getting ready to go to work to planning a wedding and everything in between. So a person with healthy executive functioning is able to communicate well, to predict what other people are going to say and do based on what you say and do, are able to detour and change plans mid-course. When you look at executive functioning disorder, it is very, very difficult to do that. So a person with executive functioning disorder often has very rigid thinking, often struggles with change in routine, change in the environment. It is very difficult for the person with PWS to conceptualize how to compartmentalize a task. So if you give somebody with PWS an instruction like go clean your room, that's a very overwhelming task to ask somebody who is living with executive functioning disorder. So if you said to somebody with executive functioning disorder, pick all the clothes up off your floor, fine, that's an easy task, they can do that. Once that's done, then let's clean up your desk. Let's get the papers and put them all in one pile. Once that's done, you move on to the next thing. But to say something like clean your room, oftentimes we might hear somebody say they're just not listening to instructions or they're being defiant. Those things aren't true. The truth is their brain works differently. So saying go clean your room, it's very difficult for them to understand how to start that task, what to do in the middle, and how to end it. Which is why oftentimes we ask people to, instead of saying, go spend a few minutes by yourself while I attend to something else, they might have a number of different things that they could do. Play a video game, watch TV, do some coloring sheets, arts and crafts, whatever. But because they're living with executive functioning disorder, it is very, very difficult for them to understand how to start a new task. So help them with that. If you're able to help them with that, you're going to see somebody who's calmer, more in control of their emotions, more in control of their body. The things that they struggle with are often because we don't understand how to support them well enough. The second one is sensory processing disorder. So sensory processing disorder is really how their bodies feel physically in space. Oftentimes we see the most challenging is the vestibular sense. This is your sense of balance. Why people with PWS struggle with this is that they have very poor muscle tone. They're really floppy babies. The vestibular sense is your sense of balance. You develop that in infancy because infants move their heads back and forth constantly, but infants with PWS don't. So they always feel like they're going to tip over. You see this when it's hard for them to walk on anything but very even terrain, up and down stairs, up and down hills, sand, gravel, anything that's not a flat surface is really challenging for them. Not because they're lazy, because they feel like they're going to tip over all the time. Great news is you can work on your vestibular sense throughout your lifetime, and it can improve. Once you are able to help that person improve, anything that works on balance, horseback riding, walking on a balance beam, not high up, something really close to the ground, juggling, even with two items, all of these things are going to help the vestibular sense, and they're going to feel more in control of their body. We see this with wearing clothes that are new, wearing clothes that have tags. When you live with sensory processing disorder, these aren't just inconveniences. These are things that take over all of your thoughts. If you are in a room with that lighting that buzzes, forget the name of it, you can hear it, acknowledge it, and move on. If you have sensory processing disorder, that is the only thing you're hearing. So understand that if you are noticing somebody with PWS having a difficult time kind of out of nowhere, check the environment. Are they wearing something that's not comfortable? Are there noises that are distracting? Is there a light that's flickering? All of these things, this isn't them just trying to be difficult or wanting to somehow manipulate the environment. This is them reacting to something in the environment that's making it difficult for them to perform whatever they need to perform that day. So make sure you check the environment, what they're wearing, what's around them, because it is so overwhelming when you have sensory processing disorder to ignore the things that we're able to ignore fairly easily. And the third thing, and in my opinion, the most important thing, theory of mind is a developmental process that usually occurs without trying, just naturally, around age 3 or 4. And this is when little kids start to realize that other people have different wants, likes, experiences than they do. So if you have 2 little kids, one of them has a favorite animal that's a zebra, another one has a favorite animal that's a giraffe. If the little kid that got a toy that was a giraffe and he really likes zebras, he automatically knows that his friend would like that more. If you have an immature theory of mind, and it appears that people with PWS do have an immature theory of mind, it just didn't develop like it does in a neurotypical child. If a child with PWS who likes zebras got a giraffe, it would be so difficult for him to understand that anyone would like anything other than a zebra, because zebras are the best. How could you even think about liking a different animal? The best animal in the world is a giraffe. And there's no concept of somebody liking something other than what they like. They are called egocentric, they're called selfish, they're called that they're not compassionate. None of these things are true. It is so far from the truth. They're extremely compassionate. They don't have the ability to see another person's perspective. They're not egocentric. They are not manipulative. They don't have the ability to see another person's point of view. So imagine how hard that would be. People with PWS intrinsically want to be the best son, the best daughter, the best student, the best employee. And these things get in the way of that. So we misinterpret their behaviors as them trying to get their way or them trying to be manipulative, and that is not true at all. At their core, they want to be good. They want to do the right thing. And then things in the environment happen, something gets in the way, there's a behavior, and they feel really badly about it. It's up to us to understand how their brain works, to save them from having to go through that cycle that only brings down their self-esteem. So when we're talking about theory of mind, imagine how difficult it would be to be a really good employee, to be in a relationship, and not have an understanding of how someone else sees the world. So if you look at just in your day-to-day life, you may not have experienced something, but you can understand how somebody might feel. So let's say Johnny hit Sally. The first thing we say is, how do you think Sally felt when you hit her? If Johnny's never been hit, he has no idea what you're talking about. Not because he doesn't want to know. It's not the way his brain works. So I think the most important thing to take from this is that the behaviors that you see are not by choice. If we can have a better understanding of how their brain works, we can set up their environment for them to be far more successful and actually have a really good quality of life. But it's up to us to understand them and to manage the environment so they're allowed and able to do that.